So, okay, it's recording. Go ahead, Ken.
You're amazing, Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've now got August architecture call. Actually, let me share my screen. There we go.
Before you do, I will take a photo. Hold on. And I will tweet it. Hold on. Let me take a screenshot. I'm being told that I need a screenshot. So we do. Everyone make. Oh, I need to go out of video. Hold on. I'm sorry to be this person. There. I was eating bread. So hold on. Everyone is smiley faces. Oh, I love it. There. Thanks.
Okay, so you should be seeing the minutes doc for the architecture calls. So we'll go through each of them in order. These are just ones I've found from GitHub. If there's other things we need to cover, then please add it to the list. So the first one is around the EL API. And I know Andro commented a little while ago. Let me find the bottom. So it looks like, from reading through the comments yesterday, that no spec currently uses anything from the EL API, so we can essentially make the CDI that MicroProfile brings in like exclude EL API. Does everyone A, think that's a good idea, and B, put out, I guess, a request for all specs to exclude EL API if they import CDI?
Yes, I agree with that.
I agree with that too. Actually, I agree with clarifying that EL is not to be used with MicroProfile, at least now. And if we exclude it from as a dependency, that will be a technical solution for this, but we can also clarify in the spec that although CDI depends on it, it's just a tiny portion of CDI, and MicroProfile that discourages using EL.
Okay, sounds good.
So what are the things, what are the outcomes of this? I'm sorry I didn't attend any previous architecture call, but do we have something like the guidelines that we have in Wiki?
There is an architecture guidelines doc on the Wiki. Whether anyone actually reads it is another thing entirely, but we have a document where we've kind of outlined some of these things. So we can certainly add that, add this to that document. And maybe go through the specs and create issues asking for the EL API to be excluded from dependency imports. And then obviously a note to the wider group as this being an outcome from the call.
We can also raise it again on the MicroProfile forum if there is anybody else who missed the discussion and wants to pitch in. But I wouldn't wait so much for responses.
You know, this is related. Currently, I am adjusting the minutes to follow the community hangout. And I think we need to add the links, the important links about this call. I have seen the wiki, and though it's light, it is enough to tell anyone what's what with architecture and MicroProfile. So Kevin is correct. We just need to do a better job with the minutes. So I'm adjusting it at the moment. Well.
Okay.
And I suggest that after this call and also community calls, maybe I missed that, but and you doing this, but if there is an important decision or something that is worth more feedback, they could just send an email on MicroProfile forum. I think it's worth it. So,
Yeah,
so other people notice, even though they don't follow the minutes or the calendar.
Yep, and I think we have been doing that. I would clarify your statement a little bit, because if we make a decision, then we aren't looking for more feedback. We're looking for more of an announcement. But I do think that we have been trying to do that anyway with any decisions that we come to, either here at the architecture meeting or at the hangout.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
Yeah, I do agree with Kevin. We have done
Yeah.
at least in the last 3 months.
Okay, so I think this one is worth to mention there. Whether it's if it's an announcement or a question, it depends on whether people will respond. If nobody responds, it's more or less an announcement. But if there's discussion around it, I think it can be still open.
Okay.
Architecture wiki.
So
We
next
also create an issue for the umbrella repository, the umbrella spec, to mention this. Okay.
So the next one on here is around servlet API usage. Andro, you actually created this, and I saw you just followed up a little while ago. So you think it's only JWT that still has a servlet API dependency?
Yeah, I saw that for the other two there were issues created and already PRs merged. And there is still the outstanding thing with Halidon not being able to pass the Jewett TCK because it still requires servlet. And I didn't see any change in that, not in the source code, and not even an issue for that.
Okay. Would you be able to create an issue in Druid for that?
Yeah, I can do this a similar issue as for the other two.
Thanks.
It's just, I'm not sure who would do that because the spec is not very active, but I could try to chase.
It'll probably be either Scott or Sergey from Red Hat that would do that, but by all means create an issue and they should get notified of it, and I can follow up with them.
Okay.
Okay. Next one is around, and this is quite an old one, is TCK testing and unification of that. Now, granted, I haven't looked at the latest state to see whether this is still an issue, but there was certainly the problem where some TCKs were using TestNG, some were using JUnit, some were using Achillean, others weren't. So we don't really have a consensus as to how we should be writing TCKs. So I guess...
I'm not sure. This issue doesn't clarify what the exact issue is, because I think it's not a problem to use either TestNG or JUnit. It's just test.
Well, the issue is that depending on what people are familiar with, it makes it difficult to know what to use for a specific spec if they're all doing things slightly differently. So if someone...
Well, the biggest problem is to run the spec within implementation, and then for Achillean you have to have Achillean container or
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is also when you want to implement like 3 or 4 different specifications, and you have to run them all and use either Achillean, JUnit, or TestNG, then it becomes messy in terms of implementation. So,
but what the implementation really cares about is just how to connect to the TCK, and I think that TestNG and JUnit doesn't make a difference. But Achillean does, because
Achillean definitely, because you need a container, an implementation for your own container.
To it. But I don't mean what is others EE. What is this EE? I don't know. This is
maybe things like CDI container, or the Open the JB container, or things like that. Maybe. You know that there are always some standalone ways to boot up CDI or JB containers or whatever. So I believe there is something like that as well.
I think more discussion is needed about what are the issues, specifically with Achillean. I think Achillean is a good reference.
Yeah, I don't think Mark's saying there's a problem with using an Achillean for the TCKs. It's more a fact that TCKs are writing the tests in different ways.
Yeah.
and GJ unit.
But I meant that if other specs don't use Arculian, they use other things, they should have reasons for it. If they don't have reasons for it, then they should probably change it to use Arculian.
Right, and that's the whole kind of drive behind unifying the TCK setup so that all the specs are using the same thing, so that it makes it easier for implementers to run them because you don't have any possibility of clashing dependencies. But also B, it's easier for community to contribute additional tests because every spec is doing things the same way.
Yeah, I agree. If there is no reason to use something else, we should definitely recommend to use the same one.
It essentially simplifies things. It's just if other specs use other things, they probably have reasons to do that. And another thing is it's a tedious job to find which specs use and change it to Arculian or standard sec. So I think we should gather more details about what other specs are using.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to establish a rule and then force the current components to change.
Kevin, what do you mean by force?
Well, I mean, I don't know how far we're going with this, recommendation. Let's just pretend that we say that, okay, we want to standardize on the use of Arculian, but then maybe some of our components are not using Arculian for whatever reason. I don't want to come out and force them to change. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, we cannot lock. We cannot lock.
Yeah.
Kevin, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just don't. I guess just to be grandfathered in. And I guess I'm also wondering, although I don't know of any examples in this case, but I don't want it to be a detriment to bring in new technologies. If there was some other spec or technology that was looking to become part of MicroProfile, but they don't use Arculian, for example, are we going to force them to change in order to be brought in? I don't know. I mean, someone said, maybe, I don't know who it was, but like we have a recommendation so that if you don't have anything currently defined or any particular requirements, then yes, let's recommend the use of Arculian. But requiring
there's another thing. Even with Arculian, things are not so clear. Because I remember that when I was working on one of the TCKs in config, we had an issue as how to package the deployment file or deployable, and we basically packaged it as a var, which implies a servlet container, and it only works with implementations that support vars. So, and I know that the other implementations have to unpack the var and repackage the var to make the test running on their implementation. So this is like things that even if we specify that we should use or the specifications should use Arculian or we recommend to use it, even then it's not clear. So maybe we could or should recommend more, or just recommend what to consider from the implementation point of view, because people who write tests are not exactly the people who write implementations, and there are basically two types of implementations: those that support servlets and complete J2EE or Java EE, sorry, and those which don't support Java EE, only MicroProfile and some custom APIs.
Yep.
So we could come up with a recommended stack for new specs, or for specs who would like to switch to a more standard stack. No big rules.
I have a comment about this. We're talking about the TCK. They're so important, and we need some standards on it. I agree with Kevin that we might, if we put, we need minimum requirements that we have never really hardened. And I think as we see the Jakarta TCK struggle and do all these things that are working super hard, many of you are involved. I believe that MicroProfile needs something similar. I know that we are scared to push projects that might want to join us in later. But TCK means stability, and we cannot be wishy-washy with it. And I think this conversation needs to move into the community hangout, because it goes beyond architecture. It will affect every single API, and we need to think what comes next. If not applicable for this year, maybe next year, but the TCK must be a little bit more formal on what we have today, so that we can be scalable. And I do agree with Mark here. He's seeing the issues. I see many of the issues currently, and we need to do a little bit better on this. Let's talk. Can we move it? What are you thinking about this?
I think you hit the nail here, and you mentioned something that leads to another idea I had, to clarify the assumptions that the TCK has, because as I explained, most of the Arculant tests assume that the implementation can consume VARs. It is not true for all of the implementations. So the TCK itself should clarify some assumptions, like it requires an Arculant container or a connector for the implementation, and the connector should be able to consume WAR file. So for those implementations who don't support it, the connector should transform it to something else. Things like that should be documented. And then it's easy to see the differences in different TCKs, and maybe we can fix those things later if they don't make sense.
Yep. It's kind of the same type of things as what we're going through with Jakarta EE. We are going to be defining what the requirements are going forward, but we know that the current state, is inconsistent. And so I think working through this and defining something for longer term, I think is good, but let's not force everyone to change until.
But I think it would certainly help to define the assumptions or requirements to run the TCK.
Yep.
Not only to have Arculant container, but to support WAS, or if the TCK uses something else, it should be clear for the implementers. If they want to run the TCK, then they need to provide these pluggable things, or how to plug in things, and what they need to implement on top of their single implementation.
And this goes back to the main concepts or APIs of MicroProfile that I do not even think we ever went back to that box and said, growing pains, John, and what will go in there. And this is exactly linked to that. I think we need to work on that first, and then go and say, these are musts for you to be TCK in the future, like 2020. This is not something we do immediately, but we're still working on growing pains, and it's super related to it, at least for me.
Do you mean the discussion about test containers and test framework, or something bigger?
What is it?
It reminds me of the discussion about the
No, that's
test.
something bigger, something way bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of, if we have a MicroProfile test framework, then we could use it to run the TCK, but it's just a technical detail.
Well, yeah, it would come down to the growing pain stuff is too broad. It's a combination of the pains, but it's also talks about specs, like a platform level spec, which needs to be, those are kind of two separate concerns. What would be, the place to address this is if we come up with a platform level spec, maybe it becomes the TCK for the platform level spec, then becomes whatever testing tools we decide. And that may have to float down to other specs.
Yes, and currently we have 8 really formal and 3 more that are in the makings, so that a total of 11. So this is something that we cannot decide today or right now. I'm just, John said.
I'll second Andrew on the fact that we should probably ask more about who is using what and for what reason. If people don't have really good reasons, we should probably recommend a default setup and try to get people to align on that default recommendation. If they have special needs, we should let them obviously decide what is best for the project.
+1.
Especially from the implementer's point of view, it will be interesting to see which TCKs require some pluggable adapter.
Yeah, exactly.
Because killing connector would be one thing, but maybe other specs require something else to plug the implementation in. And if there are too many different things, we should work on make it more consistent. But this is still not, it doesn't include JUnit or TestNG because this doesn't require any pluggable thing. It just runs the tests. So I would focus on the things that the implementers need to provide to run their implementation with the tests.
Okay, so I made a note there that we want to take this to a wider discussion. Does anyone want to take the action to do that? Because I'll be on PTO soon.
I can probably do that. Hold on, I'll write down the ticket number.
Thanks, Jean-Louis.
Issue 51.
Okay, so the next one there, JDK11, I don't know if we need to go into detail about it. It was just to ask whether anyone had any progress on finding this information out. And actually, where is that? I'm actually going to go look at the. Where is it? There. See if anyone's filled that in. Okay, no one's filled that in yet. So at this stage, I think it's safe to say that for MicroProfile 3.1, we're not going to be saying anything about JDK11. But it would be nice to try and get this to a point where for the release in February, we can at least say whether you can run MicroProfile on JDK11. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about that before we move on?
JDK11 will not affect the latest versions that are running with the MicroProfile, right? Every single time we move forward, we want to make sure that adaptability for the next, that we push the users and developers to own it without having to be scared to own it, right? They do both. So are we okay with that? Because I don't see the wiki being populated on that sense. There's lacking information when I see it.
I think the big question is, can we run MicroProfile on JDK11, which is a different question than can we compile and use Java 11 on MicroProfile?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's three levels. One is, does the API and TCK run on JDK11? 2, can they be built on JDK11? And then 3 is move to JDK11 as a base. Right now, we're only looking at the first 2. So being able to run a JDK8 build on JDK11, and then being able to run a build on JDK11 and have it run on JDK11. Switching to a base of JDK11 is a much wider discussion and will probably take a little while before people are comfortable with forcing users to update to JDK11.
Yeah, at least the first one is something we can probably check quickly.
I think it would be good to have feedback from some implementers, because there are implementations. I'm not sure about Pyara. We implement MicroProfile and Pyara runs on JDK11, although we're not 100% sure. But I'll have to check with the engineers if they run MicroProfile TCK on JDK11. So maybe if it works, then it will be one.
Yeah, I can probably do some tests as well on the Tommy side of things. I'm currently working on Java 11 for Jakarta TCKs, so I can probably do that as well for MicroProfile, because we have like a bunch of MicroProfile implementations as well.
So basically, for the first point, I can say that Pyara runs on Java 11, although it on class path, not with modules, but it supports MicroProfile. So basically answers the first question. The second, if it can run on the TCK on JDK11, I'm not sure. I think nobody tried.
So Ken, I have a question. Do we have the JDK 11 thread already created in the forum, or only the tickets? Because we are going to bring more information on this. It's so important. So if there is no thread, can we start one after this call and make sure that updates, we not only update the issue, but also the forum?
I'm pretty sure there's already one.
Yeah, I remember seeing one. And by the way, this is a recommendation, right? This isn't a requirement.
Depends what you mean.
I think the point is that if there is any obstacle in MicroProfile, TCK, or APIs that would prevent using it with JDK 11, and that would be an issue. But we're not trying.
We're not updating the specs in any way. Is my main point.
No. Unless it affects the API.
No.
But
sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sorry. I was just saying we're not updating the specs to use JDK 11. That would be step 3 if we move to JDK 11 as the base.
I said that only if API is affected, if API in some way prevents using JDK 11, then the spec to be updated. But otherwise, no.
So then we have the steps. Andrew from Prayara will check. Jean-Louis from Tomitra will check. Do we add this here in the minutes? Can you guys help with the minutes and say, hey, we will check that. I know deadlines. We have this call next in a month, 4 weeks from now. But I think we can send you guys, if you get it before that, send it directly to the forum and feed the issue. That would be my recommendation, but it's up to Kevin since he helps us with the process here.
From my side, I think it seems fine. I think the main thing is to have people verifying the specs work in each of those stages so we can make progress to saying at a MicroProfile level that we're JDK 11 compatible. Because right now, I think there's probably some of us that can say our runtimes that use MicroProfile will run on JDK 11, but I don't know how many of us are actually testing that thoroughly that if there was an issue, we would have hit one. And if we're ready to move on, the next one. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay, so now I just found it. So we actually started a wiki page to document this as well, right?
Yes. I think that's the link that Amelia added.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I have not added. I have added comments for you to add it, Ken. Seriously.
No, I saw a link there.
It's not a link. I didn't have the link, so I asked you because I was doing Twitter. Like I chose the priority one, social media. Thank you.
I got it.
Yeah, there's a link there to the JDK 11 runtime.
Oh, yeah, forum.
Yeah, so that, Kevin, that link is the page that lists the current status.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh, thanks, Ron.
You know, about JDK 11, I know we're ready to move, but I want to say I am uncomfortable on how our message is coming unclear for JDK 11. This is so important. We have that Nexus next year. We have the focus. Everyone is asking for JDK 11 and the projects and things, but we, as a community, are not being on the message. There are no blogs because we do not know what's what. And I recommend that we gather some voices that, you know, that we know. I know that community, like they do a really good job, keep catching up. So I think we need to do together and conquer message for it. And for every JDK afterwards, and do a little bit better than we have done in the past with the united message. This is my message, like what I see, especially because it comes from architecture. If we are not able to communicate clearly what's what, and we leave it for someone else, it will continue to be unclear. And what I'm asking is, can we consciously decide to pull in voices and say, hey, let's try this via the MicroProfile blog? It might be 500 words. It might show so much gits and issues, which is better because it adds the tracing, just zero bullshit, but do better this time. We have a new opportunity since we're changing the process for how we do releases. This is one part that needs tackling also.
Okay, so what do you suggested is some joint efforts?
I mean, for JDK 11, I mean for us to have a united front. For instance, Payara and Tomitar are going to search, then there's Red Hat, there is an IBM, then we have Oracle, we have Liveband, we have many vendors and partners and individuals who are speakers and things like this. And I think we could do a blog once we're ready, or something nicer that is not only about words, but it's very technical and it shows the issues. Because what I have noticed is in every single time we do MicroProfile JDK, we never add the issues, we never add the tracing, and it actually sucks. Because a technical person or a user or someone that is a decision maker will want to see the history. And I think we need to do work on that. But you know, I am one voice. I want to hear what.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just part of it is marketing. So the
not marketing. Marketing cannot pull it. It needs to be. It needs to grow from here. It needs to grow from the technical APIs. It needs to have a marketing.
Okay.
You know.
So I think that first we need to clarify if some implementation runs the TCK on JDK 11 to prove that JDK 11 or MicroProfile runs on JDK 11 even the TCK, so not only just by accident. And then we can create a blog, and then it's up to people to promote it and make it official.
Ken, Kevin asked if we have the wiki for JDK 11 that is being populated, but it's thoroughly empty at the moment. Is that correct?
No,
Yep.
It's not empty.
Well, it's got no for everything because I put that in there.
No, it's empty. Guys, come on. Let's not.
Yeah, it's empty.
Here.
But the thing is, nobody or very few people will test individual specs. So for Payara, we wouldn't even try to run individual TCKs. We would run the whole TCK for every spec because we care about umbrella releases. So
what we. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just for Payara point of view, we're waiting for our next release in a month, which should be officially supporting JDK 11, and then we can try running MicroProfile TCK on JDK 11. So it's just a matter of time.
So we can start tracking this at the live Hangout level, right? Instead of having it in the architecture meeting, we could stick an action item that we track from meeting to meeting and target. I think MicroProfile, the February release, is a good release to target to get everybody up to date with supporting JDK 11. So does that sound like an approach?
Yes, from my side. Really loud yes. I'm very happy.
I agree. I just don't know if you wanted to create an issue in this repository for architecture or in the MicroProfile umbrella repository.
There's already 3 issues for that in the my umbrella labeled as architecture.
Mm.
You mean for JDK 11?
Yeah, there's already 3 different issues.
Yeah, the issues are great, and some of them are very lengthy.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen them. Do you know if one of them mentions something that we discussed now, that we need to clarify if the TCK runs on JDK 11 and that we could add a blog post?
No, this is like, this is something that we need to just actively control, and I think John's idea to move it into the community for like some catch up, maybe a 2-3 minutes update is necessary for much more knowledge and being a constant with the message and educating the community, because we have more people joining that call and seeing those videos.
Okay, so what would be the next steps? We have issues there in the umbrella repository, and we discussed and agreed that we will clarify if JDK 11 and TCK work well together, and then we would promote it. So is this enough?
It is enough, I think, better than what we have now. Anyone thinks differently? Kevin, Jean-Louis? 'Cause
it's good with me.
Okay. Moving on to the last thing that was in the agenda then, which is talking about publishing of spec documents, because in talking with Emily and Jeff Menil the other day, we realized that most specs, although in GitHub there's the link to the HTML version, it downloads it rather than opening it up. So it's very annoying. But Emily had figured out a way, and I think she did it for the last config or something other release, where it actually opens in the browser instead of doing a download. So it's basically adding this functionality to all spec releases, so that the HTML versions of the specs can be opened in the browser rather than just getting a download of it, just to make it easier to consume. We'd also had ideas around maybe having something on the MicroProfile website that gave you like a table for each spec of the versions and a link to those HTML pages, so it's off the main site rather than having to find the individual GitHub repos. But that would be a next step then to actually having the HTML openable within the browser itself.
See, I actually think that the latter item is more important.
Yes, me too, Kevin.
I've heard that several times, and I think somewhere we've logged this, I don't know where, but where people have said, where do we go to just find all the current specifications for all the different releases that we have? And we do have them available, but you have to know where to look. And I think that's the more important part of this issue, is to correct that.
And you know, Kevin, you touched the nail here. I agree with you. You know, we need to adjust the projects page in MicroProfile, but the designer and the team cannot do it alone. We need each API that is actually have the downloadable things like this. We need that page get adjusted by the Git. We need all the updates to be imported. That means that instead of using WordPress, because that page doesn't use as a combination of WordPress and really it's like a freaking mess, we can focus on adjusting it. Because right now it's not even getting updated with the latest contributors. And every download, when you click into the project, needs to say, can someone show the website so we can go and see what, we can show exactly what we need to do. This, if we write the issues via the marketing, we can use marketing because like that is easy to maintain and closed for us. Like this, right? We have not updated this page forever. It's a mess. I am saying that if we write issues for each actual spec, currently 8 are formal and 3 more are, hardened, and we link them directly to the repo. Not the 24, but we clear it just to the run-ins, we are better positioned to get more people, and especially developers, to use it. And also users. We need developers and users to go here and say, it's so easy. Because the 24 reports are really challenging. We continue to hear this. No one knows how to do what to help. So,
in terms of actual release, do we have like a parent POM for MicroProfile that where we could put like all the at least Javadoc HTML files so that they get published as well on Maven?
Yeah, I think somebody added aggregated Javadocs for.
Philip Kruger worked on that issue and is currently completed with Emily. They work on that, and I just checked it this morning. Amazing timing. But I'm not sure. We have asked to update a contributors page, which is super technical, but it's not it. That will not be consumable, Jean-Louis. We need more. That is just like a basic of, you can go to any of these APIs, download it, and run it. We need more.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we should not do better. Just saying that at least if we would have like a parent POM for all our MicroProfile stuff, we could have everything configured in one place and have HTML files and Javadoc and binaries, everything uploaded to Maven.
Yep. Yeah.
I think this is already in place. It's just it isn't picked up by the website.
Correct. And not only that, I think we agreed 2 years ago that we wanted MicroProfile IO to be the truth of
I don't know what you wrote the computer, but we cannot hear you anymore.
Mary, please fix your microphone.
There, could you hear it?
Yeah, better now.
Okay, thank you guys. It's like super loud outside. I was saying that look at this page. If we decided 2 years ago and we keep it up, that the MicroProfile website, that this page is for users and developers alike, we need to focus on this. And if Kevin says +1 on this, because this is what I understood, then we can refocus on this, submit issues, ask anyone that is very active in each API and the repos to document and start feeding us. And then we can convert this page and maybe get it done by Code1 or by EclipseCon Europe. I mean, we have Community Day in Hacker Gardens in both events. So I think there is nothing the better timing than have this fed with us actual good information that is consumable.
Yeah, I think it's an agreement. It's just the question is who will do it and how to do it technically. So, I wonder, I saw that MicroProfile Starter has a dedicated GitHub channel where people communicate things. So how would we communicate these things?
Next MicroProfile Hangout will be my recommendation, and then I start.
This is a Hangout, but I think it would be good if we want to progress and start working on things and somebody...
We do the forum. We go to the forum, and then we say we are going to adjust the project page because it has been forgotten since we launched this site 3 years ago. We have never updated it.
Is then everybody for using forum to coordinate about this activity? So I think it's kind of if we want to change the page, multiple people need to cooperate rather actively. So we can start with the forum.
The forum is the main way to get a hold of everyone, so it's the best option.
And also, we cannot dictate in the forum, hey, we're going to do X. We need to say that there is something that we could be doing with the page that has never been adjusted for 3 years. And then I think Kevin is the most equipped because he has the issue, and just make it one sentence. Because if we go to the forum and say, you are informed that this is a job that needs to be done, we're going to fail. That is not what we do. There is a process, and the process is, do we agree there is a problem? Can you own helping and contributing, right? Because we're not alone, and I believe many...
Well, then I'm thinking further. Let's say I'm completely unaware of this. I see this in the MicroProfile forum. I want to contribute. How to continue? Like, continue this
there. We do not even know what to do. You ask there, and then we figure it out.
And then it could lead into a lot of messages in the forum.
Better messages than nothing that we have currently. The reason why I thought that we would have it repaired last October, and that was the goal. And I went in and I tried to pull this kind of thing that says, okay, let's adjust it. But then when I went to the specs, there was no documentation. The links didn't work. So no, it needs to be done some major work under each repo and all this other stuff that is currently.
Let's start forum, and then we'll see if the discussion goes into multiple forks, because there are multiple issues that I can imagine that there will be multiple threads.
Correct.
So
and we cannot do it alone. Everyone needs help.
Okay, so let's start the discussion there.
Okay, well, I think that's gotten us to the end of what was on the agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss in the last 8 minutes, or we have some extra time back?
Thank you, Kevin, and everyone. It was nice.
I think we are good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kevin, if you can stop recording, and I'll thank everyone for attending, and see you next time.
Okay.
And Kevin, can you retweet? Can you tweet this video so that we can enhance it?
I always do.
I know, and sometimes I miss it. So when you do, I will check it in the next hour or so I don't forget.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.